In this session, get ready to unlock, reframe, and conquer. You will learn to gain a new perspective and develop an adaptive and resilient mindset to overcome challenges and achieve high performance in today's fast-paced world. Get ready to be empowered to break free from mental traps, reframe perceptions, and conquer your mindset, unlocking your true potential for personal and professional growth. As for our next speaker, in a world demanding adaptability and resilience to be crucial for success, our next speaker is uniquely positioned to guide us. He will disrupt your thought patterns, deftly weaving together neuroscience, insights, and illusions to reprogram how you navigate change, make decisions, and even increase your luck. Get ready to unlock new experiential learnings and grow together. Would you please welcome to the stage Alex Moffat.
Thank you so much. Hello everybody, how are we doing? Yay. Now you're all very spread out now. There's some performance in this, so if you do want to move closer to the front, blink and you'll miss it on a few things. So feel free to come closer and just see this as my living room, really. Now, what if I told you that your brains right now are attempting to predict the very next word that comes out of my mouth? You're following along? Or maybe I was following you. Because we just have this weird brain that is able to predict stuff like that and patterns. We have these mental traps, mental maps, that sometimes get us into trouble, but sometimes help us out. It's an efficient thing. But what if I told you as well that your thoughts and your feelings that you have now aren't necessarily your own? They're someone else's. We're going to delve into that, but let's just turn things up a notch. We're going to have some live interaction. We're going to have some experiments. There's going to be a poll. I don't know how that's going to work out. It's an experiment. Makes me nervous, makes me excited, but we'll see how that goes. And of course, there's going to be some visual and cognitive illusions that will not just show you, but help you feel how these concepts can come alive. Does that sound all right? Yes. So let's get you going a bit. Are you ready to unlock your potential? Yes. Oh, that was better than I hoped for. That was brilliant. Are you ready to reframe your perspectives? Yes. And are you ready to conquer your world? Woo. Wait. There is one thing about the brain that might surprise you, and that is that an increasing number of neuroscientists say that our brain is a prediction machine, and it's making this amazing simulation of the world in two ways that clash together. Firstly, what we expect to happen based on our experiences, and what is happening now with real-time sensory information that's hitting us every single millisecond. And it's that clash that causes us to make mistakes and weird things happen. It makes the truth of reality sometimes be bent out of shape. It's why magic tricks fool us. It's the difference between what you know and what you just saw. And us magicians love playing with that clash to make that happen. But lucky for you, you've got a brain that can help shape your own reality. And that's what we're going to delve into today. Neuroscientist Mosh Barr says we see what we predict. And I can't think of a better experiment that was done in the 1960s, actually, which highlights this, by Professor Ernst Gombrich. And it was a fiendish experiment where he got people to sit in a dark room, subjects in a dark room, and asked them to look at a faint spot of light on the screen. And he told them, your sensitivity to light is going to be tested. And at the request of the experimenter, the assistant was to turn up the intensity. And they were to record what they saw. But at each request, the assistant did not turn up the intensity. Yet at the end, the subjects actually recorded that they saw the light increasing in intensity. And it was their firm expectation of the sequence of events that actually led to this hallucination. Now, I can't think of a better quote from this Gombrich guy than this, and I'm going to get this little yellow elastic band out to show you. So he said, and I love this, I suspect there is no better class of person than conjurers to bring about such phantom perceptions. They create a chain of expectations, a semblance of familiar situations that causes our imagination to run ahead and complete itself obligingly without knowing where we've been tricked. It's just a yellow bamboo stick, a bit of a skewer with a sharp end, and it looks a little bit like the elastic band. That's what you knew, that's what you've experienced. And then the sensory information's hitting you, and it just continues on. It's the clash. We're going to use that later for something. Now, let's go on a bit of a brain tour. Unlock, reframe, conquer. So, the brain tour, let's go. Let's start with this, actually. The unlock bit. So I'm going to delve into the brain, the strategies, and help you unlock what's going on. So a bit more on those mental maps. Then we're going to go into the reframe. So that's where I'm going to help you see things differently. So look at the perspectives on things. Then we're going to use some of those things that we've learned into the conquer area, where it'll come full circle, come home. And I hope today that you leave with a few things that end up helping you be more adaptable. But not just you, your clients as well. And then, of course, you can take that forward, and it just helps with resilience going forward. So let's get into it. The brain, a 3-pound mass. Just over 20% of our blood supply goes there. All these regions you can see, you've got the 5 senses, you've got the movement, you've got planning, attention, heart health, lung health, etc. All very important. There's 4 areas I'm going to focus on today. And before I get into that, put your hand up if you've read Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow. Yeah, I can see a few hands. So he talks about the System 1 brain, the System 2 brain. The System 1 brain is that intuitive, fast thinking, the one that gets us in trouble. It's the one that has the biases. The System 2 is the ruler of us, and the System 2 brain is that slow, reflective, analytical one. It needs time for information to be sent to the prefrontal cortex. So we have these 2 systems working in tandem. One's efficient, one's less efficient. So the prefrontal cortex, that's where you do your strategic financial planning. So it's the attention, the decision-making, the control, the planning. Basal ganglia at the top is our movement reward center, where we have our unconscious habits. So things like riding a bike, driving a car. Down to the hippocampus, which is where the memories are created and retrieved, and it's our learning center. We're in the limbic system, the amygdala, which is where our fight or flight response occurs. So you'll have heard of an amygdala hijack, potentially. So that's where our response, our emotional response, is sometimes out of measure with the stimulus that caused it. So it's our emotional part of the brain. Now, in terms of mental maps, I'm going to show you a few things here visually and see how you go with them. We have this funny thing, right, where since we're born, we've got mental maps ingrained in us. And there's something called pareidolia, which is where, as humans, we like to seek faces in things. So if you go down to the woods today, you're in for a big surprise. You might see this guy looking back at you. And it comes from caveman times, where we're the social networking that started then, where we're trying to recognize faces, etc., and it's just stayed with us. We just see faces in things. This one here, I see my cavoodle. He's called Magic. Jumping across as the cloud. You can see him looking at you, his tail at the back there. And if you've got a dog, you might see yours there too, or something else. That's just what I see. Next time you're brushing your teeth, you might get the faucet just smiling back at you there. But instantly, your mind recognizes a face. The green capsicum. Adrian! A few Rocky fans know what I'm talking about. The rest of you are a bit like, is he okay? There he is. So we just have this ability to do it. It's the mental maps that we've built since we were born, pretty much. Now, what about this? Some people say they can see a koala in there. I'm not so sure. All right, I've made this for you, so I won't tell you what this is just yet, but your brain right now is trying to seek patterns in this and try and identify what this is. But it's tough, right? But it's seeking. So if I update your mental map now and just tell you that there is a snake in there, then now what you're doing is your brain is starting to seek that information and go, oh, maybe I can spot a snake in there, yes. So let's bring some color into it, and I'll show you that there is a real snake in there. So if you watch the screen, it should start to come into view. So there it is. And then it's going to recede. But now you've seen it, and you know it's real, you've updated your mental map. And so if I showed you this in 6 months' time, you'd see that snake in there. You'd see its head, you'd see it crawl round, etc. So people can still see it? Yep. Now what about this phrase? So I've covered up half the word, but what does it say? Grow together, the theme of the Congress. Instantly you can recognize it, yet half the letters are missing. So our brains are seeking out patterns. They're seeking patterns that don't exist at times. And they're trying to fill in the gaps like this all the time. So a bit of an unlock on what's going on with our brain there. But like I said earlier, our thoughts and our feelings, they're not always our own. So if I, excuse me, God. Is anyone yawning? Is anyone feeling like they might yawn? Or are you too smart? Your predictive brains know that was a fake yawn. But we've all sat in front of someone and they give a bit of a yawn and you yawn, don't you? So I'll explain a bit why that happens. So Portugal, 2006. A few teenagers presented themselves to their doctors. Skin rashes, irritations, difficulty breathing. And the doctors just put it down to an allergy. But within 48 hours, over 300 teenagers had presented themselves to their medical profession with the same symptoms. And they were scratching their heads, these doctors, going, why isn't it passing to kids, young kids? Why isn't it passing to adults? Why is it contained to just these teenagers? Until they put it down to one common denominator: a TV show. A TV show called Strawberries with Sugar. And it was hugely popular at the time, so these teenagers would sit there enthralled, emotionally invested, imagining themselves in the storyline. A bit like when I used to watch Neighbours and Home and Away. I still watch Home and Away. So you just are in it, aren't you? And what happened was this lead characters of this hugely popular show had the virus, they had the symptoms. And that fictitious virus jumped from the screen into a few teenagers for real, and then through their social networking became a real virus with over 300 of them getting it. It's mass psychogenic illness. It's a form of social contagion, but it's all made up in their minds. And as soon as the medical profession told them, your minds have made this up, it just virtually disappeared overnight. So tests have been done, and mirror neurons are what's at play here. So it's a bit like the yawning. Mirror neurons cause this. And tests have showed that when you watch someone performing an action, your brain lights up and activates the same as if you were performing that action yourself. So it exactly mirrors watching someone perform it as if you're doing it yourself. So the actions, when you're sat in your offices or having meetings and you're doing things, physically just know that the person or people that you're with, their brains are mirroring it unconsciously inside as if they're doing it. Okay? They say that the more empathetic you are, the more susceptible you are to this, because you're often spending time in other people's heads, of course, a high empathy. So talking of empathy, I mean, this is a study which I find quite funny, but it's real, is some scientists said, why don't we do a study on people while their faces are temporarily paralyzed? And so they got some Botox patients, and they wanted them to look at some photographs of humans giving off emotions. And of course, there's a control group where they were to look at the same photographs. But of course, because their faces were temporarily paralyzed at the time, the mirror neuron activity, the facial muscles that couldn't move, they struggled so much more than the other group to actually describe what emotions were being conveyed from these photographs. So have a think about that when you're with people and you're smiling, and when I smile, you smile back, all that stuff. It's the mirror neurons, it's contagious. We are contagious. Now, this is a longitudinal study that was done by the Framingham Heart Study. And we've all got a good friend who's just that outgoing, happy person, you know, the one that just walks in a room, lights it up. We've all got a friend like that, right? So this study, you've got you've got your friend. Their outgoing nature and general happiness, they found, would increase your satisfaction through their life satisfaction measure of the survey by 15% just through them being your friend. What about your friend's friend? So if they're the happy person, the one that's just optimistic, glass half full, growth mindset, all those things, then you, 10% higher on the life satisfaction score in the coming months, they found. Your friend's friend's friend, who you might not even know, you might never even meet, you probably don't even know they exist, some of them. But they, through the chain reaction of friends, it was found would have a small but slight impact on you of 6% to increase your overall happiness as well. So it's not just your actions, but it's your feelings as well that can be shaped by others. So when you're in your meetings with clients, colleagues, business partners, thoughts, feelings, actions are all being mirrored, and you are contagious. So it's really important that the awareness of this, you think, how are you coming across? So what is the mindset that you are communicating? What is it you'd love for them to mimic in you unconsciously and take forward from there? Now, talking of mindsets, so choose who and what to shape your thoughts carefully, but what I feel the best advisors, the best people or business people that I know, they have a belief. The ones that are most successful, they have a belief that they can grow and will grow. They have recognition of where they've come from. They're adaptable. They're doing self-directed neuroplasticity without even knowing it. They've recognized effort in learning. And so neuroplasticity is at the heart of this because it's all in the interpretation. So in our brain, if we go back to that, you've got a reward center, you've got a stress center. A reward center, which releases dopamine when people are trying to achieve a reward or trying to get to a goal or a challenge. There's a dopamine hit there. But it's released on the journey, not just the success at the end. And a growth mindset individual would interpret that and recognize the effort in the learning and the reward and the dopamine on the journey as well as getting to the end. And the regulation of the levels of dopamine is changed accordingly. Conversely, fixed mindset, it might be more constrained because there might be more roadblocks or not as much effort in the learning. So, stress center, cortisol is the chemical that's released there, the stress hormone. Again, growth mindset would interpret the release of this through going through a change or a challenge that they come across as applying some meaning to it. So again, effort in getting through it, but they'd actually go, well, what does this mean to me, or what meaning could I apply to it? And of course, the emotional response in it, memories are attached because of it, habits are formed because memories are attached, and people generally get the way through it with a growth mindset, way of thinking. Fixed mindset, again, more constrained. So the regulation of cortisol would be increased because they'd be finding difficulties along the way, or perhaps reasons that it's hard to get to. The learning's too difficult, etc. So both, if someone goes through a challenge or a change, cortisol is released regardless, but it's the interpretation, the perspective of what's going on that causes the regulation of cortisol to be different just based on how you think about it. So let's go through some growth mindset principles here, some techniques. This one here, notice and flip. So we can never be, no one is 100% growth mindset or 100% fixed mindset, we tend to flick across to the two, and we might lean one way or the other. But if you find yourself or clients with a fixed mindset sort of belief or thought process or comment, then noticing, and it's particularly important for yourselves and children as well, just noticing that it's occurred and recognizing that, well, I've got a choice now to change is really important. And then it's just flipping the switch and just going, well, I've just said something that sounds glass half empty. Right, what can I say now? What's my mantra to flip it? So it's a recognition and catching yourself doing it. And it's not always negative thoughts. So fixed mindset, basically it's like demonstrating is good, but developing is better. Proving yourself might be fixed. Improving yourself is growth, for example. Being better than others sounds good, but it's a fixed mindset way of looking at things. Being better than you were previously is the growth mindset way of looking at it. So it doesn't mean it's always a negative thought. It's a fixed thought. It's got to recognize improvement or progress to help it. So flip the switch. The next one is yet. So this is very easy, great with children, but it's shown to have a real positive impact on the brain. So if you just add the word yet to the end of a statement, that might be, I can't do this. I can't do this yet. So it leaves it open-ended as opposed to just closed. And that has a positive impact on the brain. So this one's particularly good with children, actually. And then the third one here, I love this. So I've done this many times. I've done this with my children and got them to get out of some bad habits into good ones, like biting their nails and things like that. But it's a goal where it's an if-then plan. So if or when situation X occurs, then I will perform behavior Y. And you're linking your behavior with a situation, which is a trigger of something. So the important thing is to write down your statement of what you want your if-then plan to be. What is it you want to change or try and achieve, or what habit do you want to build, which is what this is particularly good for. So it could be, when I catch myself saying a glass half empty comment, then I will change it and say it in glass half full, as a basic sort of example there. But you can create a habit with anything if you use this structure and you write it down, and it might take a few months. But if situation X occurs, then this is how I'll behave. And then you'll start encoding your brain. That's what you're doing here, future encoding your brain to respond that way. Okay. Growth mindset, insight building questions. So these are good for coaching as well, but these recognize progress. So we've talked a bit about just the optimistic, the learning, the effort in learning, but really recognizing progress and where you've come from is crucial. So often we might sit in meetings, financial planning meetings, and it's like, current situation, what do you want to get to? But it's really important to look back where you've come from as well. And that's role modeling a growth mindset by doing it. And if ever someone is struggling with this in your coaching, or it could be a client conversation, and you can change these questions around, they're not scripts here, but why do you feel that way is a recognition of something from the past. What led you to think this? Where's it come from? And then you start moving forward. So what makes you feel this is true? How are you going to move past this? And what's the next thing you will do? So it's starting from the back, coming forward, going into the future. So a good little coaching structure, but it's a growth mindset orientated coaching structure there. Okay, so it's not the outcome, it's the learning. It's the key thing I want to leave you with on this particular segment. Just like it's not the decision that's made, it's how the decision was made that is more important. And recognizing how you make decisions helps you make more effective ones in the future. So, it's now time for the poll, but before you get your phones out, so we'll get the poll ready to go, I'd like you to look at these 4 cards and just imagine they're laid on a table and I'm sat opposite you. Just slide one to me. Which one would you slide over to me? Once you've chosen, don't think about it too much, just which one would you slide over quickly? What's the corresponding letter? Remember that, and then go into your apps now, and the poll question should be there, asking you to choose A, B, C, or D. Just punch in which was it that you chose? Was it A, B, C, or D? And we'll just give it 30 seconds or so. Can someone raise a hand just to let me know that this is all there? Yep, perfect, thank you. And anyone still waiting to do it? We'll just wait another 10 seconds, because this is an experiment. I actually don't 100% know how it will work out with a group of financial planning professionals where you have different brains, but from a similar line of thinking. Okay, so let's bring up the results and just see what this looks like. So this is, I'm really pleased I did this. So thank you to the 125. The most standout one, and it's just over half of the room picked C. Now it's funny, I don't need and I'm glad with the subsection of the world that we have here, I'm glad it worked out like that, because I've got magic books that are 60, 70 years old that tell me the second card from the right is the one they will choose most likely, Alex. So C is the most common one. It's gone up. Someone's just picked it. Thank you. Now, if I was to ask you why you picked it, you might not know. But put your hand up if you're right-handed. Most of the room. It's on the right-hand side. It's just in a bit. For some reason, people don't like the outside bits. What was that? 15%. So, and the 13, that's it. They're the lowest ones. If you chose B and are left-handed, put your hand up. A few still, right-handers chose B. But there's an unconscious choice here, unconscious decision-making. Sometimes we make decisions and we don't know like why or how we're doing it. But that, for me, if someone can take a photo of that, that would be brilliant, because it's a scientific experiment done live right here. Now, a study was done where, it was at the School of Psychology at the University of New South Wales, actually, in 2019, where they found that the unconscious brain makes a decision up to 11 seconds prior to the conscious brain actually actioning that decision. So when there was imagery being chosen, the actual conscious choice at the end, the press of the button, up to 11 seconds prior was the unconscious choice. The brain activated at that point. So it shows that we have this sort of window where we're making some unconscious decisions without really even thinking about it or knowing, but we have time to come in and recalibrate that. It's a bit like our System 1 brain is probably doing the choosing there, but our analytical System 2 could come in and really clarify, is that the right decision? Now, we're going to go into this. This is a form of framing, by the way. So, as a magician, sometimes we do it 5 cards, but this with 4. So it's the framing, it's the positioning, it's the influence. So I would place at point C the card that would get the best outcome for that effect. And if they don't pick it, I just do a different one they never knew. But the best effect would have been if they chose that one. We have little things called outs. But framing, right? So in your profession, this is huge. So we're going to delve into a little bit here, because the way you frame information or frame your questions can really influence the outcome. And I don't mean that in a we should do it. I mean it in a it's unintentional sometimes. It's unexpected. It's unconscious. And a study showed, right, Harvard Medical School, physicians, lung cancer patients, they were presented with information, statistics on whether to perform surgery or not. So the success rate of surgery. So it's whether to do surgery or radiation. So they split them into 2 groups, like they often do. And they presented one group of physicians with these stats. So of 100 surgeries, 90 survived immediately. 68 were still alive after 1 year. And 34 were alive after 5 years. They then presented another set of stats to another group, the other half of physicians. Of 100 surgeries, 10 died immediately. What am I? 32 were dead within a year, and 66 were dead after 5 years. Now, for the astute ones in the room, financial planning, you'll realize that they are exactly the same set of stats. One is pitched, or not pitched, but framed as survival rates. The other one is mortality rates. But they're exactly the same, and a truly rational decision maker would just have the same outcome. But when asked, would you perform surgery, the ones presented with the survival rates, 84% said yes. The ones presented with the mortality rates, 56% said yes. Same outcomes. And now we're playing with lives and longevity of people's lives. It's a little bit more high stakes than a little card effect there. So when you're in your meetings, it's really important to look at how is my question framed? How is this information framed? Risk profiling questionnaires. I'm not sure they'll ever be completely unbiased, but how is the question being framed? And we'll come to something on that in a second. Biases, though. Let's move into biases. So, common ones in our world. There's 180 of them. They happen all the time, but we've got availability bias. Going with the information that's easy, available to us, first at hand. Confirmation bias, you all know. In-group, out-group. We tend to favor people who are more like us. Risk aversion, temporal discounting. That happened to me this week with a new tire change. We can do it now. It'll be $230, or you can wait 5 hours and come back. It'll be $200. We'll just get a cheaper tire in. I just placed more value on getting it done now. Even though it's $30, I live 6 minutes away. It just felt more valuable because I was there and then just waited 15 minutes to get it done. So these biases just happen to us all the time, and they're unconscious, of course. One of the biggest biases is when people say, I'm not biased. We all are. And they're really hard to overcome, even hard to believe sometimes that we have them. But let me show you this. This is the well-known checkerboard illusion that you may have seen. So this represents my point here that you can see the grey squares, you can see the white squares. A is on a dark grey square, B is on a white square. If I was to tell you that they're actually the same color shade, the A and the B, you'd find that very hard to believe, right? But they are. And sometimes our brains just can't control how we are thinking about these things. Even when we know, and I won't remove them, but they just look different, but they're not, they're the same. And I promise there's no trickery there. Look it up on the internet, it's brilliant. Emphasizing things, emphasizing influences, showing confidence in something influences. Frequency of information, if you repeatedly say something, that's going to influence as well. So we have these things going on. Now, let's go to the risk profiling. So this study, a white paper was actually done, which some of you may know or have even read, back in 2006 from the University of Wollongong. And it's worth a read, actually. But it just shows the power of framing, because in risk profiling questions, it could be a bit of a gain-loss bias in there. There's often questions around how would you respond if the market dropped by X%, for example. What would you do? And then a range of answers. And we'll touch on that a bit later with something that I've got planned for you as well. But my point here is to really think about your information, and is there any framing in it that might lead it one way or the other? Because, as you know from the very beginning, when half the room picked the same card, we make decisions unconsciously. And as we know from studies, even though they're presented the same way and the outcome might be the same, sometimes you could have elicit different responses. Now, I'd like to try something. I've got an Aerobee here. There's not really a big group to catch it, but I'm going to throw this to the audience and we're going to pick someone. So if you put your hands in the air, I hope I don't take an eye out, so I won't throw it too hard, and then it might just be a detached retina. But just end up with somebody. Oh, I was aiming for you. Now, what's your name? Sorry? Adam. Okay. Adam, right. Let's just get these yellow bits of paper out. I should have prepared these earlier. There we go. So, Adam, I've got 5 choices for you here. Previously, with the card one, that was 4 choices. But this one's 5, and I'd like you to choose one. So Adam, just shout really loud, because it's hard to hear from up here. Think about it if you want, but what number would you like? 5. And why did you pick 5? Did you? So you're one of the 15%, and you've chosen 5 here. Now, I'm going to give you a chance to change your mind. Would you like to? No? Okay. Let's just pop this here. Okay, so it's out. Now, on the back of here are some prizes. And I'm going to give you whatever prize is on the back of this. Okay, these are what you don't win. But you chose 5. I framed it with a few choices. You chose for a reason as well. But this was one of those things where I'm nervous and excited. I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm glad it's paid off. I'm going to give you, Adam, 1.25 CPD. On me, for you. Thank you for playing. Thank you for coming. Look what you could have got. Lifetime free membership to the FPA on me as well. Phew. I'm glad that wasn't picked. Blimey. But thank you for playing, Adam. If I could have the Araby back at some point, that would be fantastic. Okay. All right. Let's move on. All right. So, clicker. Here we go. Bias mitigation. So here's some great ways to mitigate biases. And some of them you'll do, some of them maybe not so much. But it's co-creating the advice would help mitigate biases as much as possible. Remember, it's hard not to, but empower the client to make the decisions as well. So bring them in. Even ask them, what made you decide that? So like I did with Adam, so why the 5? Just ask what made you make that decision. Because you're getting to the bottom of, was there any bias in it? Was it framed in the right way when they tell you? Interrupt the thought patterns and slow down system 1. So I'm really glad that you all jumped in and did the C, or half of you, sorry. But a truly rational audience, it would have been 25% on all of them really, wouldn't it? So just interrupt that system 1 that does those unconscious decisions by slowing it down. Bring in the system 2 to make the analytical decisions there. How am I framing this question and information? Just review your process and go back, and you might find that there's some questions that you can tweak or information that you can tweak. See from other people's perspectives. So that's one of the best things with any bias, is to always gather other people's thoughts and perspectives on things, because then you know that you're getting a more balanced view on stuff. And break information into chunks. So that really helps with the cognitive overload that clients get in our meetings, because there's so much information, education, and chunking it helps pause. The prefrontal cortex needs a bit of a battery break. So think of it like a battery. It needs to recharge. So chunking it down. But I'll leave you with that. That's thank you, AI, for, I'm hoping that looks like Adelaide, but little billboard sign there. Now, let's move on to this, okay. We're going to go to focus. Now, what I'd like you to do, this is an experiment as well. So I don't know how this is going to go in this auditorium. I've done it in smaller areas. I'd like you to listen to this. It takes 5 to 10 seconds to get going when I press, but I'd like you to listen to what the women are saying in this clip. And I'd like you to tell me, I'll ask a few of you, what were they trying to achieve? So what are the women trying to achieve in this audio? Okay? It lasts about 60 seconds. It'll come in the next 5-10 seconds.
Hey. Oh, hi Jackie. Hi Charlie.
Hi Jackie. Hi Charlie.
Oh, you got present? Yeah, I got it. Oh, I didn't get you red actually.
Yeah, not too bad.
They didn't have it in red, so
Okay.
let's get it in blue.
But it looks nice, doesn't it? It's kind of classic. You better give it a wrap, because I think when's she coming actually?
She's coming at 4, so we've had a
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have got wrapping paper.
Yeah, we've got wrapping paper.
What colour do you think? I think
Let's do drinks.
we've got silver and this
We've got
bluey
some cups
colour.
over
What do you
here,
fancy?
so I'll come over and give you a hand.
Okay, we'll go with the silver. Right.
So I'll tell you what, if I leave these...
I'm a gorilla.
Why don't you do...
I'm surprised you got part. Parts of really big car park on the outskirts, but it's quite expensive. This one is pretty sharp. Okay, then. So that'll do when it's size. Sarah.
Yeah. Joe, you're all coming?
Let's take it. You cut this for me.
6 or 7. Oh, nice. I haven't seen Joe for a while. Good stuff.
Excellent. Beautiful.
Okay, so who can tell me what were the women trying to achieve? Anyone here? Wrapping gifts, yeah, there's some gift wrapping stuff. And do you know what colour they were sort of going? Blue? Yeah. Did they say anything else, the women? What are they trying to achieve? Some silver, I thought silver as well, but there's blue, I think, in there too. There was a time in there. I think some people were arriving at a certain time. What? Getting bread? Bread, good one. So it's hard to pick up because it's like a noisy, they do it in the, it's deliberately recorded in a way that's not going to make it too easy, but you can pick up on stuff. Now, this is the experiment bit. So did anyone hear anything weird? Only bread. Anyone, anything weird? Cups? That's not the weirdest thing. Did anyone hear a man enter the party and repeatedly say, "I am a gorilla. I am a gorilla. I am a gorilla"? Did anyone? There's got to be one of you. No? Oh my, down here, one, brilliant. I've got CPD points for you as well. Now, that is unbelievable because I didn't know how that would work in this auditorium, but I asked you to attend to the women's voices. So this is a bit on attention. And therefore, you're inhibiting, your brain is inhibiting the men's voices. It's a nod to the Daniel Simons basketball one where you count the passes and the gorilla walks through the court, and we've all missed that the first time we watch it. I didn't play that because it's been seen a lot of times, and this is a relatively new one, but the man walks through and says, "I'm a gorilla," repeatedly, and I listen to it up here going, "Oh my God, this is just cringy, like it's so obvious," but it's because my brain can hear it quite clearly. But isn't it amazing? It's so clear if you go back to it. So what's happening is that with attention, there's only two main drivers, or the two main drivers really of attention, are detecting novelty and seeking reward when you put your mind to something. So in there somewhere, it might be the reward of, "Oh, I want to get what the women are saying, you know, because Alex might ask me." And it's a bit novel, of course. Detecting novelty and seeking reward. So when we have those in our presentations or our conversations or whatever it might be, if there's not novelty or reward in there, then you've got distractions from it. So that helps people keep on track. You get a dopamine release when there's novelty and reward. And of course, the amygdala's involved with emotions, meaning gets applied, and the prefrontal cortex regulates the attention involved by enhancing the salient stimuli, like the women's voices, and inhibiting distracting stimuli, like the men's voices. So novelty and reward, have a think in your process. If you were to review it, where in it do you have novelty and reward? Because attention is something that's hard to keep in a 90-minute, sometimes 2-hour meeting with clients, high cognitive load. But if you're not sprinkling bits of novelty and reward throughout, then they get distracted, they get tired, they need a rest. But that keeps them going. So I noticed the previous speaker talked a bit about the multitasking myth as well. And that is in the world of attention. So when people say they're a great multitasker, what they mean is they're a great underperformer because you can't be good at both. And a Stanford University study showed this with cognitive tasks and IQ levels, where their IQ levels of people trying to do cognitive tasks at the same time actually dropped to be that in the range of someone who smoked marijuana or stayed up all night. And then University of London, similar. The IQ levels dropped, mostly in men, by on average 15 points, which brought them into the average age of an 8-year-old while trying to perform multiple cognitive tasks. We have more trouble organizing our thoughts and switching from one task to the other. So where you put your attention, it's sort of twofold, because we can only ever focus on one thing at a time. Otherwise, we diminish what we're doing. But if you are focused on one thing at a time, it means you are missing things, like the gorilla guy, the life and soul of that party. Now, from a magician's perspective, there's a few ways, and if you try and relate this as I'm talking, and I'll wrap it up with it, in a performance. So I could come to the front and go, pick a card. Thank you. Put it back, shuffle it, flick it out, catch it, reveal, bang. Not bad, but it's just boring. It's A to B to C. Or I could go, what's your favorite card? Brilliant. Would you just sign your name on it, draw a picture? Now we've got some artwork signed by the artist. Would you shuffle it in the pack for me? Now I take it, magical things happen, it appears there, comes out of my pocket, flicks out, catch it. Then it multiplies into 3 of them. There's only supposed to be 1 of these in the world, and then they instantly disappear. And then I flick the whole pack against the window, and they all cascade to the floor, except for one that's stuck to the window, which is their card. I then send them up and say, would you mind going and get it? And they go to the window, and they're going like this, and they just can't get it off because it's not on this side of the window, it's on the outside of the building. So I send them out, they get it, they go all the way around, and then they take it off and they wave to their friends and they peel it off and they come running back in. I take a bow and a thunderous round of applause for that. It's effect I've performed numerous times. It's A to B to C, because it's card chosen, shuffled, found, but it's non-linear, it's a journey. And think about that with your client meetings. We're often very much, I just need to get from A to B to C because I've got so much on, the client's only got this much time, I need to go through this. But the journey is so important, the non-linear, because you are holding attention. There's novelty, there's reward, more in the latter effect than the first. And there's expectations exceeded. And that is another way of holding attention. If you can exceed someone's expectations throughout, then they're going to just be wanting to listen and they'll be far more attentive. Okay, so let's move into, this is probably one of my favorite sections now coming up. It's to do with reframing and change. So, I mean, imagine if you're lying in a hospital bed now, you're looking up, and surgeon's leaning over and he just says, hello, operation went well, but you need to change your lifestyle. You've had a triple bypass operation, and the surgeon's saying you need to change your lifestyle. You would, wouldn't you? Life or death. But according to Johns Hopkins University, 90% of triple bypass patients did not change their lifestyle afterwards. And that's huge. And just think of us with a bit of regulatory change, a bit of process change, compliance change. How are we supposed to adapt and change minds on things when they find it difficult? And how are we supposed to change other people's minds as well? We're hardwired, and it's our mental maps that cause us to struggle with it, with this change. Familiarity bias, we don't like the unfamiliar. Uncertainty, we hate that. Cognitive load, of course, is too hard. And emotion regulation, we struggle to actually deal with the emotions of it sometimes as well. With uncertainty, this is quite a sadistic little study that was done actually, where they split them into 2 groups, like they do. They said, this group here, we're definitely going to electric shock you. So they knew they were going to get one, a little electric shock. This group here is 50-50 whether you get one. So half of you will, half of you won't. And then they wanted to look at their responses, their heart rate, all that sort of stuff. And they found that the group who knew they were going to get an electric shock were actually far calmer and relaxed than the group who just did not know because it was uncertain. And of course, in our industry, we've gone through so much uncertainty that we get that threat response, that feeling. anxiety, etc. But just know that knowing you're going to get physical pain can actually feel better than this uncertainty as well. It's very strange. I've got this electric shock lighter here that I got years ago. I used to stun my mate Dave with it all the time, who smoked. But I say, I want to live and breathe what I'm talking about here, so I say to my wife, look, just keep the battery in or take it out, and I'll do it live on stage. I don't know. I'm almost getting a tingle here, and it's just, oh my God, like she does it every time. Yes, I used to do that on audience members, but not anymore. She's never taken it out. I'm just waiting for that one time. So, anxiety. Jeremy Jameson, a psychologist, he worked with students, sports students. Why were they getting so pumped for big games? Adrenaline flowing, cortisol, the stress beforehand. And then why were they going into exams with nerves and anxiety with a total opposite sort of feeling? Yet it's the same kind of chemicals running around the body. And so he did a study. He wanted to look at anxiety. And for entrance exams to get into graduate schools, he split them into two, as they do with these. And he sent one half into a room before their entrance exam. And he basically, in less than a minute, said, this anxiety, just know that it's normal, the pre-exam nerves. But also know that it will probably help your performance in this exam. But also know that it's highly likely that you will perform better as a result of feeling anxious. The other group just went in and did the entrance exam. That group who had that anxiety recontextualizing performed on average 10% higher scores than the other group because they put it down to that reframing of what anxiety actually is. Now, coming up on a big stage like this, I did a little bit of that before because we all get nervous talking to crowds, and I'm just like, they're just people. They're here, they want to listen. It's just energy. If you didn't have it, you would be, not as good. So, reframing of things is crucial, recontextualizing. And I'm just going to go through 5 steps of cognitive change. If I can go on there. So I've gone through, that's your attention. There we go. 5 steps. They go from easy to tougher. So normalize it. So how typical is your emotional response or dilemma? It's a very good way of putting things into perspective. Reprioritizing it. So where does this response sit in relation to others that you might have going on in your life? Helps you look at the big picture of things. Repositioning it. This is seeing it from the perspective of someone else. So it could be your favorite sports star or pop star or parent or work colleague. How would they view this? And then distancing it. So this is you as the third person. A good technique is to zoom out and look at yourself. If you can visualize, you're going above the room, above the buildings, you're getting smaller and smaller. You can see yourself, the city is forming, and then the country, and you're just this little insignificant blip in the world, which has some profound effect on the mind, on putting your worries and concerns into perspective there. Or it could be in 10 years' time, what would I say to myself now? That's a way of distancing as well. Reframing. So this is what Jeremy Jameson did with those sports students. So recontextualizing and thinking about the situation differently and interpreting it. So changing one's emotional response by changing one's interpretation of the meaning of the stimulus or situation. Okay. We are ready for the rubber hand illusion. Now, I cannot wait for this. So I have asked someone to help because not everyone loves coming up. So would Hayley come and join me on stage? So round of applause for Hayley. Now what we are going to try and do, welcome Hayley, come and take a seat just here. And I'll just move that there. So what I'd like you to do, is we have this rubber hand, okay? I'm just going to pop it there, spread the fingers a little bit. And I'm going to put this gown on. It's a sleeve. So it's going to help with the illusion, not so much with the fashion. So pop that over your head. And then if you pop your left hand just under there, just bring it through, that's it. Just position it the same way under there. And then your right hand just lay next to the other hand there. We're just going to make that into a sleeve. So they kind of look, from your view, like your hands, right? Yeah. What I want you to do, we're going to try some live neuroplasticity here with Hayley, just to show you how powerful it can be. I'd like you to visualize that and just believe that it's your own. Yeah? It's weird, I know. Not got as nice nails and jewelry, and what I'm going to do now, so your visual belief that it belongs to you, I'm now just going to paint or brush Hayley's real hand, and then the rubber hand I'm going to brush simultaneously the same fingers. So, just look and feel, and it'll take a moment to build up as it goes like that. So can you feel?
Yeah, I can feel it.
And what's it? Can you hear Hayley when she talks? No?
Yeah, I can feel it. It feels like you're just brushing my hand, but you are, so that's okay.
The rubber hand? What does the rubber hand feel like? Has it started to associate with your mind yet as your own?
Yeah, it looks like... it's really weird. It feels like it's mine.
And if I tap like that, does that feel funny? Yeah?
Yeah.
And then up the back there, and then down the finger. Yeah. Does it feel like if you were to have little micro movements, little twitches of your real hand, that hand would actually move?
Yeah, it
in
looks
the same
like
way.
The flesh is jiggling. It's really strange.
It's such a weird feeling, isn't it? So Hayley's brain is actually rewiring right now. It's done a bit through this association. So she's now associated this fake hand as her own. Now, if you feel like you could move it, do you feel like if you could lift a finger, it would move?
Yeah, it's my hand.
Or maybe just lift your index finger and see. What? Go down again. And up again. Oh my goodness. There you go. That's a little joke at the end there, that one. Now, what about this though, this spike? If I was to just jab that right, I would never do that, even to my rubber hand. Thank you, Hayley. Round of applause for Hayley. You were great. Okay, I'll take the fashion off. Thank you so much. How good was Hayley there? Now, that was live neuroplasticity, so the brain got rewired. But that's happening in the moment, and it was just to show you, a bit of fun, of course, but show you how easy it is to do. You've got to say the right things, say the right words, ask the right questions. And the feeling bit with the brushes helps, of course, with the illusion. What about future challenges, though? So we can recontextualize now, but what about getting nervous or worried about future events? It can happen with clients as well, market volatility, things like that. How can we help our brains for the future? So 15 years ago, I entered the International Brotherhood of Magicians British Close-Up Magic Championships. And I'd been rehearsing for ages. And I walked on stage, and I dropped all my playing cards after about 20 seconds, all over the floor. But I magically produced another pack of cards and then carried on as normal. Ended up coming second in the end. And the reviewer wrote, I saw Moffat drop his cards, but he continued seamlessly. And I'll never forget that. It could have been a lot worse if I hadn't actually future encoded my brain to respond to that event. Magicians have outs. But I'd actually rehearsed, what would I do if I dropped my cards? Maybe I rehearsed dropping them a bit too much, but I wanted to know what my emotional response would be. And so I told myself, I practiced it. How physically would I respond with the production of the new deck of cards? How could I continue without getting more nervous, without panicking, without it getting derailed, continue with the audience engagement? And little did I know I was using this future encoding sort of technique quite rudimentarily, but the scientists at the bottom have worked on this thing called window of vulnerability, where it's important you relax and in a state of calm. You focus, that's the I. And if you've got a future challenge or dilemma, you just focus on it. And you start asking yourself, how would I respond to this? So you want your actual feelings now, the anxiety, the stress it might bring. Think about them now. And what you're doing then is retrieving memories. And a memory retrieved, there's a window of opportunity to amend it and rewire it, a short window. So you focus on how you would respond now. Then you start asking yourself those questions related to the thing that those 5 domains that we went through earlier. Ask as many questions as you can. Like, how would I respond in 10 years' time? What would I learn from it in 10 years' time? How would Taylor Swift deal with this? Just 10, 15, 20 questions, as many as you can, that help you reframe your thoughts, and then narrow it down to the ones that are more meaningful to you, and then say it out loud. That's the loudspeaker. What is your emotional response that you want from that event? What you're doing is preempting your emotional response and future encoding your brain. So if it happens, it's highly likely your rewired memory that you've changed from your recalled ones will cause you to respond that way. Just like I just whipped out this new deck of cards magically in an actual effect and carried on as normal because it was programmed here. So this is a great way. So when you think of clients, market volatility, etc., the question in the risk profiling questionnaire, how would you react if there was a market drop? This is the sort of time where you might not lie them down in a chair or anything, but you might just say, well, what would you want your response to be? If you're retiring in 7 years, what would you tell yourself now about how you should respond if that happened in 6 months, 12 months, or any other sort of comments like that? Brilliant way to future encode. Now, we're going to wrap it up now with luck. So Richard Wiseman did the first scientific experiment on luck. And the reason I'm talking about this is that it actually encapsulates everything that I've spoken about. So he works closely with British psychological illusionist Derren Brown. Derren Brown had a TV show based in Todmorden in West Yorkshire. Anyone from West Yorkshire? No. And if he spread a rumor that if you stroke the dog, the statue, it'll bring you good luck. And so people started flocking to this dog and stroking it, thinking it will bring them good luck. But generally, the luck of this small town increased. People started taking opportunities that they would not normally have taken, taking chances they would not normally have taken, seeing things they'd ordinarily miss. There was one guy, Wayne the Butcher, who is just, nothing good happens to me. He's Mr. Bad Luck. And Derren and his team even planted 3 opportunities of luck in front of him to see if he would take them. A £50 note on the floor walking to work. He just stepped right over it. A market research lady, questions about cuts of meat. He's guaranteed to win £20, but he just didn't bother, he walked off. A scratch card that was guaranteed to win a TV was posted to him. Did he do it? No. Didn't call up, because he never wins. It really is in the mindset. And Richard Wiseman works closely with Derren, did this study over 7 or 8 years, thousands of people, hundreds of experiments. And I actually liaised with him beforehand, so he's given me permission to go through some of these things. And he whittled it down to 4 key principles of what makes lucky people lucky and unlucky people unlucky. It's worth reading his book, The Luck Factor. This isn't a pitch, but this is where it generally comes from. So, maximize your chance opportunities. Lucky people generally chat to more people. When they do meet new people, they keep in touch with them more frequently. They do that religiously. When observed the interviews of these lucky and unlucky profiles in interviews, observers with the sound off, therefore they don't know who's who or what's being said, were just to observe body language. They found that those with the lucky profiles smiled twice as much, 3 times as much open body language, and a lot more eye contact than lucky people. They also have a relaxed attitude to life. They score low on the neuroticism score, meaning that they spot more opportunities around them, as opposed to a bit more stress, less calm anxiety. You tend to zone in on that and miss more what's going on around you. And they love to experience new experiences, so they wouldn't go the same route to work. They wouldn't go to the same cafe every day. They wouldn't go to the same supermarket. They don't go to the same holidays. They just shake it up and experience new things. Listen to your lucky hunches. Lucky people rely on intuition a hell of a lot more than unlucky people. They meditate more. They go back to problems later, so they don't bother just trying to solve them now or just leave them. They actually come back to them later. And they make decisions in quiet places, believe it or not. Expect good fortune. They always expect good things to happen. So when they meet someone, they expect it to be a successful conversation. And then turning your bad luck into good. They never dwell on ill fortune. And if they do have a setback, then they take constructive steps to actually overcome the problem and learn from it so it doesn't happen again. So it all sounds quite simple, doesn't it? But they actually do all of these things most of the time. And their luck is a hell of a lot more than people who don't or do it sporadically. And the reason why I'm mentioning this as well is that it links to a lot of the things that I've gone through today. So chance opportunities and where you put your focus and what are you missing is to do with attention, decision making, informed intuition, expectation. It's the expectation effect. It's that predictive brain that you've all got. Just expecting good things to happen is more likely going to make them happen. And then the reframing, the neuroplasticity. So turning bad luck into good is about framing your thoughts and just thinking slightly differently. Now, I'd like to finish, so we're just about on time. We've got a key takeaway slide for you there, which I won't run through, but you can have a quick look at that. And I'm going to finish with a little card effect. So I'm going to come down to the audience. I've got a pack of cards here. I don't know if we can get the front lights just up a little, but I've just got a table. Okay. Always prepared. All right, I've got to make sure I don't knock those over. Now, I've got a pack of cards here, but they're not like any normal pack of cards. So they are alphabet deck. So all the letters of the alphabet twice. So 52, which is good. Is the sound coming across okay? Yeah. Now what I'd like you to do, I'm going to give you about a quarter of the deck, and just mix them. Okay, so I'm not going to count, just take a bunch, shuffle, and shuffle, thank you, and then shuffle there. And don't go overboard, shuffling too much, but just know that what you're doing is you're making decisions, right? Okay, you ready? Okay. Zachary, can I take yours? Now, sorry. Get these. Just shows that it really is haphazard here, Zachary. All right. And could I just take yours? Thank you. And yours. Perfect. And yours. Brilliant. Now, what I might do is I just give them a little interweave as well. Just don't need to, but I just like showing off a little bit. There we go. They look weaved to you? Yeah. And then you can hear the cascade. Okay. Now, Zachary, you mind coming up? I'd like you to just cut the pack any way you like and place it there. So maybe stand around this side a bit, and then place it there. And then just pick that up and place it at a weird angle on top. So all the cards, the whole lot. Perfect, thank you. And I'm going to borrow you in a second as well if you want to stay there. So you have mixed these alphabet cards up. Thank you, did a great job. We've weaved and you've cut. So randomness. They say if you can embrace randomness, then it helps with uncertainty as well. The more you can embrace randomness. Now what I'd like you to do is where you've cut. So if you can just grab, Zachary, come forward and just grab those, take them all, and bring them up here. So you didn't know you were going to do this, so I really appreciate it. And just stand over the corner there. Oh, not that corner, just the corner of the table, sorry. And what I'd like you to do is just from the top, just deal so that the audience can see the face of the card. So deal one right on the edge. So is it the right way around? Yep. And then just keep going until you can't fit any more on this display that is crudely made at home. So what your brains are doing now are trying to make sense of this. And we can have the lights back down. As we've got this randomness, this nonsensical stuff from an audience shuffled pack. We've started with mental maps. Almost done, then one more on the end, maybe, yep. Thank you, perfect, and I'll take those. A round of applause, thank you for Zachary. Watch the steps. So, starting with mental maps, the social contagion, the mimicry, etc. Going into growth mindset, attention, decision-making, change, reframing, neuroplasticity. Everything in this has got a touch of everything that I've just talked about. Your brains are trying to make sense of this phrase. Is there an anagram in it? What is it? What's the pattern? What does it spell? I'll give you a bit more information. Remember, I'm updating your mental maps as we do this. Okay. A little bit more information there. I don't know if you can see a pattern yet or not. I'll help you out a little bit more. But from randomness, as your brains try to make sense of this, I'm going to help you fill in the gap. And hopefully it works. What does it say now? Grow together. Trust your brain, your predictive brains, because they can get us into trouble, but they can do a hell of a lot of good. And together we can grow. Thank you.